Welcome to the Very Liberal podcast with me, Yvette Cooper.
And me, Mark Oaten.
Have you been watching the Olympics? Did you follow it at all?
Well, I was going to really get into the Olympics, and then the opening ceremony completely put me off the whole damn thing. But every now and then you catch something. And for example, I just absolutely had to watch the fastest man in the world, the 100 meters. It was incredible. And the winning margin, I mean, they recorded the same time. So the winning margin would have been just somebody's nose. And actually, I've got quite a big nose, so I might have come to think of it. Your chin and my nose.
How dare you?
Well,
Yeah,
but it was
it
was literally down to that. And
he won by a nose.
He won by a hair nostril. It was unbelievable. So there are those incredible moments when you get into something. Similarly, there was a lot of interest I had around some of the athletes who were competing for the UK in the rowing. We seem to come top on the rowing. The other thing that I find really fascinating is countries that don't do very well. Like the last time I checked, Turkey had only won one bronze medal. And you think that it's a huge country, massive population, a young population. Why do some countries underperform and others perform so well?
St. Lucia got its first ever gold.
Fantastic.
That woman, Alfred the Great, as they called her, and some running. Well, fair play to them. That's not really what I found interesting about the Olympics, which I have to say was a turn off from the very start for me. I thought the French turned the shop window into a disaster area with that opening ceremony, which we've previously discussed. But they added to the problem with that guy, Steve van der Velde, for the Netherlands, beach ball player, I think. He's a convicted paedophile. He raped a 12-year-old when he was 19. I just don't think he should be allowed to represent the Netherlands.
This is a really difficult issue because...
Not for me.
Well, okay, for me, I'm a great believer in the law. I'm a great believer in somebody serving their sentence as well, being punished. But I'm also a great believer in individuals being given another chance after justice has taken place. If he had, and I don't know the circumstances, but if he had served his sentence, if he's not on any offenders list, then he's entitled to compete.
So you wouldn't have any problem him being a school teacher for, say, 12-year-old girls like the 12-year-old girl he raped?
But again, the law would say it's very unlikely that you would be allowed to apply for a position of authority where you're working with children.
So why should he be allowed to represent his nation in something which is high profile? He would become a national hero, got his life back. The 12-year-old's not got her life back, has she?
But if for example, he'd been sentenced for burglary, aggravated burglary, and he'd been given a sort of 6-10-year sentence for that, what would you say he would then he then be allowed to compete in the Olympics afterwards? He would have served his sentence. There would have still been a victim of that crime as well, but he would have served his sentence.
Yeah, in that specific case, I would let him, depending on the circumstances, but in principle, let him compete, because there's something about the violation of a child which just crosses a line for me. And I think the way I feel about it, I just can tell you how I feel as a parent. Here's a man, 29-year-old, 10 years ago, he raped a 12-year-old. And now, if you get a gold medal in the Olympics, you become an icon. You become an ambassador for your country. And I don't think that that's right.
I think the other big controversial issue for the Olympics, of course, has come in the boxing, particularly where you've had the whole discussion about individuals who change from being, in the case of the boxer, I think it was an Algerian boxer, wasn't it, who was boxing as a man, now boxing as a woman. Clearly some concerns there about whether it's a level playing field for female boxing.
And yeah, I think the argument is that that person, Khalif, I think is the name, had always been registered as a woman, but had failed some sort of a test, non-specified, has to be said, by the IBA, International Boxing Association, and hadn't been allowed to compete the previous year.
In the World Championship.
Yeah. And someone else called Lin, I think it was South Korean, could be wrong about the nationality, same situation. And the IBA had said neither of these people qualify as women because they got too much manness in them, whatever it says in their passport. But the IBA is currently suspended. Maybe for political reasons, but whatever the reason, because the Russians used to be in charge of it, or are in charge of it, still standing by their position. And the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, said, no, you can come in. Now, those They both won medals.
Yeah.
Now,
there's a moral dilemma around it, but there's also a safety dilemma because, interestingly, in one of the bouts, the Italian opponent, she quit after, I think, 40 seconds.
46 seconds, Carini.
Yeah, she said, I don't feel safe. I literally don't feel safe in this position. So there's a duty of care the Olympics have around protecting the safety of athletes. And clearly, in that case, an athlete felt very unsafe. And this is something the Olympics are going to have to grapple with. In fact, whole of society is going to have to grapple with it in many ways, because we are getting into such a complicated discussion about, for example, back to prison again, but what happens to somebody who's changed their identity? Which prison do they go to?
But they didn't. I don't think they officially changed their identity. There's some questions about this aspect of it, but I think technically they claim to have been women all their lives. But it's simpler for me. This is all about inclusion, and yet in both cases, some of their opponents, they said this isn't fair because we feel we're boxing men. They were careful because they didn't really want to get into the politics of it. But the Italian, she said it's not fair. It's not fair. She felt she was boxing a man. So we're doing all of this after years and years of trying to get sexual equality for women in sport, and now they're getting bashed up by people who they think are men. As somebody said in the media, and I agree with this: if a man hits a woman in a kitchen, then it's abuse. It's an assault. But people were turning on to watch a man beat up a woman in a boxing ring in the Olympics.
It was an uncomfortable watch. You could see that Italian box was very uncomfortable. But there've been some fantastic watches and some new sports coming into the Olympics as well.
Like what? What are you going to say now?
I think break dancing is. Come on, I know you like a bit of break dancing.
Yes, but not in
kicks. Have you tried it? It's bloody hard. You deserve a gold medal just to be able to do it.
I used to be able to when I was young.
Yeah,
before I knew you, actually.
You could have represented Estonia.
No, I want to go into boxing as a woman. I got a chance of winning then. Actually, I probably couldn't even beat the women, but the fact is, if they did introduce pinball, I'm quite good at pinball, that old game.
What is pinball?
It's an old-fashioned game, really, these days. But you got flippers, and you make a ball fly around on a table, and then you score points. Then I'll be good. Then
some odd ones that golf is in. That's only recently come in, but then snooker's not in.
No, snooker should be in.
Snooker should be in. Who makes these decisions?
I don't know. It's probably
let us know at oatenandopik.com what sport you would like to see in the next Olympics. I don't know where they're going to be in 4 years' time. Is it Atlanta? I think it is. So what should be in Atlanta? Let's talk. Change the subject. Let's talk a little bit about the silly season. And it has lots of different things which take place. Parliamentary recess, for example.
There's one really silly thing I saw. It was a subject matter of one of the most ridiculous interviews I've seen on television all summer. Talk about silly season. Did you see Ed Balls, former Shadow Chancellor in the Labour Party, interviewing Yvette Cooper, the current Home Secretary? You know their connection, don't you?
They're married.
Yeah, they're married. They're married. Why did you tell the viewers what we saw?
I mean, it was painful at times, particularly when there were double acts of, as they all normally have, a Good Morning, Kate Garraway and Ed Balls, and Yvette Cooper comes into the studio. There was no acknowledgement that, well, actually, this is a bit awkward. You are my wife. And in fact, Ed at one point said, of course, we've been discussing this for a few days, haven't we?
Yeah, what, in bed?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's a jokey thing is, it was somebody, it's like, what point did the producer not think this is ridiculous, this doesn't make sense? But there's a serious point as well. There is at the moment a lot going on. The Home Secretary needs to be held account. Parliament isn't sitting at the moment, so one of the ways we can quiz and hold the Home Secretary to account is through the media.
Yeah, but
if your husband's asking the question,
exactly,
it's not going to work.
It looked ridiculous.
Yeah.
But he said, "Oh, do you think it might not have been the very best way?" Not really criticizing you. And Yvette Cooper and
then he said, "It's lasagna tonight. Is that all right?" I mean,
she might as well
have just. Did you forget? Yeah. Did you get the toilet roll? I'm taking. I mean, really.
Yeah. We do better at arguing with each other than they did.
You do better arguing with yourself than they did doing the damn thing. But that was. I mean, we are into August, and we are sometimes into the broadcasters dropping the A team as the interviewers, and stuff like this can happen. But the other silly season that it always bugs me is that you can absolutely guarantee during August there will be a stock exchange collapse, which
Oh,
will
yeah,
be manufactured by the stockbrokers. So we had it recently. Japan fell. It had its record fall on one day, and the next day it had its record increase. What? The only reason this is happening was because there was some slight concern about unemployment rates in America, and so the stock markets globally decided to panic. And what happens, of course, is that clever stockbrokers are busy selling, and then the minute that it's collapsed, they're busy buying low, and then the next day it goes up again. And this happens every summer, and it really winds me up because the stock markets, you know, wobble, and they find any excuse to wobble, and it nearly always happens in August. It's ridiculous.
And the people who suffer are the little investors.
Yes,
the folks who've been advised to put £2,000 or £5,000 in because we're all meant to be entrepreneurs. They don't know it's coming.
Yeah.
And so therefore they sit there paralyzed. Then maybe they sell at the bottom of the market. They don't buy something else.
exactly.
And then they lose their money.
And it's not
the whole
just that.
thing's such a scam.
It is a scam, and it's also many people's pension funds are linked to this as well. So it has knock-on consequences. There was, however, some good summer news from the Bank of England. I've been talking on the pod for some time about, please, when are you going to cut interest rates? You put the country through so much pain. There are people, as we speak, who are having to remortgage on rates which have quadrupled. Well, we did get the first Bank of Interest rate cut. It was as planned,
Bank of England.
Bank of England, 0.25%. But the worrying language used by the governor was, don't think this is going to be the beginning of other cuts coming through. Well, when they were increasing rates, they put them up every month for 15 months. They've met their targets. They've met their fiscal targets. Why are they now not going to start gradually bringing interest rates down? Again, it worries me. It concerns me. A lot of individuals suffering as a result of those decisions.
Conservative risk aversion. That's what it is. And this gets me back to the drum that I beat all the time. What on earth did Labour do this for in the first place? Why did they privatize interest rates? One of the key levers of the economy. Any government which has got courage, in my opinion, maybe you disagree, should own the interest rate decision. The Chancellor should set the interest rates, but instead they have to beg to the Bank of England and try and convince the Bank of England. It's ridiculous. If any government, if any party like Reform UK, pay attention here now, Nigel Farage said, if I become the Prime Minister, I will nationalise interest rates and I guarantee a 2% rate cut. They're going to get in.
I agree. Actually, on this, I agree with you. I think look, there is no democratic accountability for that monetary committee. I suspect none of them have got a mortgage. I suspect most of them are so damn wealthy they don't feel the pain with these interest rates. You need politicians to take such big decisions because there's democratic accountability. And this has affected millions of people. And it makes sense to have interest rates set at the same time that you're setting a budget because you have the whole fiscal package being looked at together rather than this rather false separation at the moment. So yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. What I think is also fascinating is there are many Tory MPs who lost their seats who are saying now, Rishi, why did you not do what we told you to do? Wait till November. You'd have had an interest rate cut, maybe another cut, possibly in October, and you could have started to say you were turning the economy around. And I still, to this day, do not understand why Sunak went when he did, because he could have waited and things might just have got a little bit better.
Some predicted that it might be to do with school term in California, but we'll see. We'll see what it is.
Talking of school term, it's holidays, it's recess for MPs. And what did you tend to do during Parliament recess?
I'd take 2 weeks, maybe 1 or 2 weeks away. Most of the time, I did surgeries for all the good it did me.
Come on, you won the seat many years.
Yeah, but if I'd known in 2005 that I was going to lose in 2010, I'd have gone on the jollies. I'd have gone on the all-party parliamentary group for Fiji.
You did go on the jollies. You went in the jungle. You went on a coach trip, or did you?
I did that after I lost my seat.
Fair enough. But I used to find that I was.
You're mixing me up with your friend Nadine Dorries.
Not my friend. I used to be so shattered by the time recess came that I would get a cold and get ill. We'd go on a family holiday. Absolutely, day 2 of the family holiday, I would be in bed, sick, exhausted, because the body had been running on adrenaline, and the minute that you stop, you become susceptible to all of the bugs. It used to drive the family crazy. He's ill because, of course, it's recess.
I didn't have that. I actually, I really enjoyed working. I have to say I worked too hard, and I, with the benefit of hindsight, probably ruined relationships I shouldn't have ruined by doing that. And I think I made a mistake. I took it more seriously, I think, than a lot of politicians, and certainly than the media. They'll disappear off, which is why you get such rubbish reporting over the summer. But I was annoyed when people say, "Oh, these people have got their 12 weeks of holiday," because I spent most of those weeks working.
Same.
And if I hadn't done that, probably I would have probably had a family and children earlier. So I paid a price for it. But
it's true. I mean, I think there is a sense that MPs have this bad name, but most of them are working during recess. They're having to do that just simply to catch up with the workload in the constituency, which is huge. And I'm speaking to a couple of the newly elected MPs at the moment, and I think it's changed from our day. Predominantly, we had letters and occasional emails. The new intake are just completely bombarded, overwhelmed even with the amount of emails and social media interaction they're meant to do. So they're needing recess to try and appoint staff, get offices set up, and to actually get on top of the backlog. And of course, it's going to be a shorter recess as well this time, because Keir Starmer is very keen to show that we've got a lot to do. We're not going to have a long recess.
Keep that man out of Parliament. The longer the recess, let's have recess for 5 years. That's what we need, because Keir Starmer is going to ruin this country when he goes back, and he's already made a good start at that.
I think it's in Belgium where they couldn't form a government for about a year, and the civil servants just ran the thing, and it was one of the most successful governments they've ever had when the civil servants just ran it. But it is recess. I'm assuming this rather sort of colourful, Barbados feel is in celebration of recess.
I can afford a shirt, not a holiday.
Well, you could help us by subscribing, of course, to our podcast. It's Oaten and Opik.
No, it's oatenopik.com. How can you forget? It's always about you.
I'm dyslexic.
It's Oaten, forget the rest of it. Yeah, Oaten, the big I am.
Oaten and someotherguy.com.
Oatenopik.com. Get it right, man.
Do subscribe, do join in, do let us know what you think should be part of the Olympics when it comes around again in 4 years' time.
I'm Yvette Cooper.
And I'm Mark Oaten.
This was the Very Liberal Podcast. See you next time.